All right, hello everyone. It is Thursday, March 10th, 2022. My name is Drew Sukup, and on behalf of VMUG, I'd like to welcome you to today's 10-Zig Webcast, Exchange User Information Securely and Authentically, SAML, SSO, and MFA Walkthrough, Demo, and Benefits, presented by Jason Hudson, Technical Solutions Architect at 10-Zig. Before we begin, I have three quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for you on demand. You'll receive an email with the on-demand link, so keep an eye out for that. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation if we still have time. All questions will need to be entered into the question and answer section on the side, and please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, because we'd love to just monitor them and answer them throughout. Third, there'll be a short online evaluation that pops up as you exit the webcast. Please take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. I really appreciate when you guys do that, so thank you. All attendees from today's webcast who opted in their information at registration will be entered into a raffle to win a $200 Amazon gift card. The winner will be contacted directly by 10-Zig, so good luck. Thank you to everybody that's already sending in hello. For everyone that's saying where they're from, love to hear where you guys are from, so let's see how international this is. Let's see who's here. But we're not here to listen to me talk. We're here for Jason, so forgive us for being a little late. It's my fault, but all right, let's get started. Jason? I'll turn it on over to you now.
Thanks for the introduction and housekeeping, Drew. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Hudson from 10-Zig Technology and have over 30 years experience in the IT industry. I joined the company back in March 2021 after having a close 10-year working relationship with 10-Zig as a retail infrastructure architect at Iceland Foods in the UK. I'm a technical solutions architect, and my role focuses on creation and improvement of 10-Zig technical content, such as videos, blogs, webinars, and tech support guides. Now, I'm sure that high on the list of most IT infrastructure architects, system administrators, and technical managers is the extremely hot topic of security, and especially cybersecurity, taking into consideration the fact that more people are now working away from the office. So with that said, I'm here to present a specially pre-recorded two-part video that looks at user authentication, focusing on SAML, Security Assertion Markup Language, SSO, single sign-on, and MFA, Multi Factor Authentication. Now, the first video looks at the principles of SAML, SSO, and MFA, and touches briefly on the history of computer security and where we are today. We'll be talking about users, IdPs, which are identity providers, and SPs, service providers, and explain how they interact with each other and how the authentication process works between them. Then the second video will show you how to set up and demonstrate a single sign-on from our 10-Zig 6048QV Zero Client directed to Microsoft Azure SAML Identity Platform Service in the AAD, all via a VMware Horizon Unified Access Gateway as a service provider to gain access to our Horizon desktop. Just to let you know, we've got 3 poll questions during this presentation, and now we're going to start with the first one. So the first poll question for today, are you using 10-Zig thin or zero clients already? We've got yes, no, or planning for the future.
Perfect. And while we wait for those answers to come in, this is a live poll for our audience. So everyone, make sure you answer it. It's always good so we can craft the experience to exactly what you need. But I want to give a quick shout out to everyone from Maryland, Toronto, Jackson, Mississippi, Irmo, South Carolina, everyone that's joining us today. So happy Thursday, everyone. Let's see, we're getting results coming in. Perfect. Jason, you can see that by refreshing the results, view results.
Yeah, cool. I got that. Thank you. Cheers, Drew.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone, for answering these poll questions. We really appreciate it. We're getting a lot of participants. This is excellent. Thanks, everyone. This is great. Looks like it's slowing down. So, Jason, feel free if you want to share it with the audience or not.
Yeah, cool. We'll push that. See that? So that's nice. That's good. It's good participation. It's a good mix. Thanks very much. Thank you, everybody. A quick background on Tenzig for those who are not aware. We're solely focused as a thin and zero client vendor and specialized in VMware amongst other VDI EUC products. We're headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, with the EMEA office in the UK. We're a founding VMware Ready partner, which means we certify all Tenzig endpoints on the VMware Ready marketplace. Where we differ from competitors is that we're solely focused and our sales and technical teams are skilled in VMware through training and certification and take sales and support very seriously and to the next level. We're a front runner in many VMware innovations, such as our Linux-based Blast Extreme marketed Zero clients. The company motto is that we make our product fit your environment and not the other way around. And this is more critical than ever in such fast-paced and changing times. Very quickly, just to discuss our VMware Ready endpoints, we have a range of x86-based endpoints for Linux and Windows. All our endpoints include a wide array of hardware options, such as varying display connectivity, USB-C, fiber, and PoE. All Tenzig x86 endpoints include enterprise-free centralized management via the Tenzig Manager, which offers cloud enablement for remote management too. We're also a Teradici partner offering VMware Ready-based Terra 2 Zero clients. Finally, we offer a flexible demo program that we'll talk about at the end for anybody wanting to trial our products in your VMware environment. Let's start the first video where we look at the principles of SAML, SSO, and MFA, and touch briefly on the history of computer security and where we are today. And this should lead nicely into the part 2 video where we set up our SAML environment for you.
Today we're going to be looking at user security, touching on MFA, but focusing in particular on SAML and single sign-on concepts. We'll be discovering what they're about and how they can benefit you and your organization from a security, service and support point of view. In this video, we'll be talking about users, IdPs, which are identity providers, and SPs, service providers, and explain how they interact with each other and also how the authentication process works between them. Be sure to stay tuned for the follow-up video that will put all the content we talk about here into a real-life working demo. Before we begin to delve into each of these technologies, let's have a look at the brief history of computer security, passwords, and where we are today. When passwords were invented, hacking didn't exist. No one had any idea that one day businesses and personal lives would be run entirely in cyberspace, giving thieves a target. This gave rise to the idea of encrypting passwords. The first method was called hashing, and it was used to translate passwords into alphanumeric strings using one-way encryption. The passwords themselves were never stored on the device, and this method, invented in 1974, is still in use today. In 1979, additional characters were added to the encryption, and those characters were called salt. And while it made the encryption stronger, it didn't stop passwords from being guessed. Still, today, the most common passwords are variants of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, easily guessable even without trying to decrypt anything. What's more, people are still reusing old passwords or using the same passwords on multiple sites, further complicating the ability to protect information accessible online. 91% of people say they know they aren't supposed to reuse passwords and that they know why they aren't supposed to reuse passwords. But 66% say they still do it anyway. And why wouldn't they? The average person has 191 passwords, and it's nearly impossible to remember more than about 20. Users can be coerced, charmed, or tricked into revealing their passwords to others. These latter techniques, called social engineering, have become a growing problem for companies of all sizes. One way to thwart social engineers and reduce other risks associated with passwords is to implement some form of two-factor authentication. If users are required to not only type in a password or PIN, but also provide something additional, whether a card, token, fingerprint, iris scan, or other factor, simply obtaining a password won't be enough to get the cracker or the social engineer into the network. At the moment, you're probably logging into an Office 365 account with your username and password. And what multi-factor authentication adds is another method of authenticating, or second factor, which is where the name multi-factor comes from. Multi-factor authentication works on the principle of something you know and something you have, and adds an extra layer of security to the sign-in process by using a two-way approach that otherwise wouldn't be available to a potential social engineer. Something you know would be a username and password, and something you have these days is usually a mobile phone. When multi-factor authentication is enabled for your Office 365 account, when you log in with something you know, which is your username and password, you'll then be contacted on the something you have, your mobile phone, by Office 365. It can contact you in three ways. It can contact you by voice, so they can actually call you up and you can then verify who you are. It can send you a text message, so you can use a code to complete the authentication, or you can use a mobile app on your phone. By far, the easiest approach is to use the mobile app, and Microsoft has its own mobile app called Authenticator that can be downloaded from your relevant mobile app store. RSA is an example of a company that introduced two-factor authentication decades ago in the form of its Secure ID product and hardware token key fobs. The RSA token is a physical pen that generates a random code every 60 seconds. This code is used along with the RSA PIN number that you choose in order to gain authentication for access to an account or server. The RSA token offers a two-factor authentication process that consists of something you know, a 4-digit memorized PIN number, and something you have, the physical token, which generates a 6 or 8-digit code every 60 seconds. The user must enter their personal RSA token PIN number, followed by their 6-digit RSA token code, to make a 10-digit password used to gain authentication. This provides a strong defense against keyloggers and those trying to gain unauthorized entry to a system. It's another preventative technology that can help against cyber attacks. In this section, we'll cover the basics of SAML authentication, how it works behind the scenes, the benefits of using SAML authentication, and how it streamlines user access to your organization's applications. So what is SAML, or Security Assertion Markup Language, to give its full and abbreviated name? SAML saw the light of day back in 2001, and version 2.0 came in 2005. SAML is an open standard and is often used to provide single sign-on to web-based applications and can be used for both authentication as well as authorization. So what are the main benefits of using SAML authentication? User experience. Since SAML offers SSO services, it reduces password fatigue from maintaining multiple passwords, offering a better user experience. Ease of use. SAML allows organizations to manage permission levels and application access for their users with ease. Security. Since SAML offers SSO using IdP, user credentials are stored in the more secure IdP rather than on every SP. Since communication between the IdP and SP use SAML tokens, it is inherently more secure. Platform neutrality. SAML allows integration with standard services like Azure Active Directory and IdP providers like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator to provide authentication services. And reduced administrative costs. SAML reuses single authentication and reduces the administrative cost of maintaining individual SP account databases by transferring this burden to the IdP. The SAML protocol has three entities: the user agent, which typically is the user's web browser, the service provider, or the SP, which is the application you try to access, and lastly, the identity provider, or IdP. When configuring SAML federation, you establish a trust relationship between the service provider and the identity provider. Let's explain at a high level how the SAML authentication flow works. When we talk about the SAML authentication flow, there are two possibilities with regards to where the flow begins and who initiates it. It can either be initiated by the service provider or the identity provider. SP-initiated flow sees direct interaction from the user by requesting access to an SP's application. IdP-initiated flow, on the other hand, sees the user first logging into an IdP portal, for example, then selecting from a list of trusted pre-configured service provider applications that are available. First, let's take a look at IdP-initiated flow. In this flow, the user starts by accessing the identity provider, and the user is prompted for authentication. Once this has been done, the user can request a service, and if the user is authorized, the IdP generates a SAML assertion. Using the user agent, the assertion is sent to the SP using a post message, as it's the user agent who acts as the transport mechanism for the assertion. The SP verifies the assertion, maps it to a local user, and then the session can start. The second method of initiating the authentication flow is referred to as the SP-initiated flow. Here, the user starts by reaching out to the service provider, and since the user is not authenticated, the SP redirects the user to the identity provider using a request for authentication message. Once the user is validated, the IdP generates the SAML assertion. The assertion is then sent to the SP via the user agent, and the session can start. It's worth noting that during IdP authentication, this is where you would see any two-factor or multi-factor screens appear, if additional user security is required during the authentication process. This concludes today's session, where we talked about user security with SAML, MFA, and SSO. At a high level, we discovered what they're about and how they could benefit you and your organization from a security, service, and support point of view. We talked about the roles of users, service providers, and identity providers, and also the two different SAML authentication flows. If you have any questions regarding this or related topics, then please contact your Tenzig team or visit the website at www.tenzig.com.
Hi, everybody. We're back, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I hope that gave you an insight into the principles of SAML, SSO, and MFA, and provides to be useful for the next video that we show you. Before we start that next video, I'd just like to ask you the next poll question, please. Do your current endpoints support your SAML, SSO, and MFA requirements? So
Oh, geez, I wish I knew the cool way to pronounce SAML was SAML during the introduction. Forgive me, everyone. I've been exposed as not a tech genius over here, unlike Jason. Everyone, this is another live poll. Make sure you fill it out. We'd love to see how many results we can get. Let's see if we can beat last time. Oh, great. Thanks, everyone. You're already... Oh, you guys are all coming in hot. Thanks, everyone. And again, if you had any questions, feel free to ask them during the video or before and after. And of course, we'll have our dedicated Q&A section at the end of the presentation. So thanks, everyone. Jason, how do you like these results? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's pretty good again. Yeah, it's
Oh, they're beating last time too. Congrats, everyone. We beat last time. All right. Jason, up to you if you want to share this one to the audience or not.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so that's interesting. The no's and the not sure's. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for participating in the poll questions as well. Really appreciate it. Okay, so let's start the second video where we'll show you how to set up and demonstrate a single sign-on from our 10-zig 6048QV Zero Client. We'll be directing that to the Microsoft Azure SAML Identity Platform in the AAD via a VMware Horizon Unified Access Gateway, acting as a service provider to gain access to our Horizon desktop.
In this Part 2 video, we're going to demonstrate a SAML authenticated single sign-on from our 10-zig NOS-V Zero Client. We'll show you how to set up the NOS-V Client to gain access to a Horizon desktop via a VMware Horizon Unified Access Gateway, acting as a SAML Service Provider. All this will be redirected through a Microsoft Azure SAML Identity Platform service in the AAD, and will also demonstrate additional security features by utilizing multi-factor authentication as part of the sign-in process. At the start of the video, we mentioned two entities that play a vital role in the SAML environment, the service provider and the identity provider. In this section, we'll show you how to set up a Horizon Unified Access Gateway, or UAG, as our application service provider, so that our Horizon application on the 10-zig client can authenticate and log in using our Azure credentials. To integrate UAG with the identity provider, you must configure the identity provider with service provider information. Upload the identity provider's metadata file to the UAG server, and then configure Horizon settings in the connection server console. Let's start by logging into the identity provider, which, as we mentioned before, is our Azure AD SAML platform. I'm going to launch my Azure portal by searching for it in the Start menu. Once inside, I need to select Enterprise Applications in the Services section above. If you can't find the Enterprise Applications in your list of commonly used services, then go to the search box above, start typing Enterprise, and you'll soon see it in the list. If I click it, then I'm presented with a list of managed applications inside the Azure AD that can be set up to use the Azure tenant as their identity provider. If we scroll down the list, we can already see a VMware Horizon UAG set up as a service provider, as this is currently used for our live environment. So, for the purpose of the demo, we'll create a new VMware UAG service provider and take you through the steps required to get it ready for use with this AAD identity provider. To set up a new application, we need to click the New Application symbol at the top of the screen. Once this is loaded, you see a list of popular platforms and applications to choose from. A quick way to find the specific app you're looking for is once again to start typing the name of it inside the search box. If I type VM, we can see our UAG appear in the list below. Let's click this and you'll see a new window appear that gives us the opportunity to change its name. I'll leave the standard default name as is and then tag on the words -10zig demo, just to differentiate it between our existing live application and this new one. Once I'm happy, I click Create, and you can see the status message displayed, indicating that the application is being created. And after a short while, we are presented with an overview of the new application. Notice that you can see the name and any unique application and object IDs that were generated during the creation process. In the Getting Started section below, we have several options open to us that enable us to set up the authentication process between the AAD IdP and our newly created application. So let's take a look at these in turn. First, we have Assign Users and Groups. This is where we set up any AAD users and groups that will be allowed to use this application. This basically means that if enabled, users and/or groups assigned to this app with the visible option set to on will be able to launch it to potentially gain access to the UAG. Second, we have Set Up Single Sign-On. This is where we set up and create a connection between our identity provider, AAD, and VMware Horizon UAG. We'll come back to this in just a moment. The third option is provision user accounts. This is only informational here and is just letting us know that we need to make sure that we have user access inside the Horizon UAG before we can expect full end-to-end authentication and access. The conditional access area lets us further refine our security options and enables us to create conditions such as force multi-factor authentication if our users are signing in from outside the company network, for example. Finally, the self-service option allows your users to request access to this application and also gives you the option to approve or deny the request via an approval service of administrators. Let's go back to option 1 and assign a user that's allowed access to our service provider application in our Azure IdP. Click on the Assign Users and Groups link inside the box and then click the Add User Group link in the top left. Inside the left menu, click Non-Selected, and then inside the new right-hand menu, start typing the name of the user or group that you wish to give access to. For the demo, I'm just going to select my own user, so I just simply start typing my name, Jason H, and then select it from the list. Once I'm happy, I click the Select button in the bottom right of the screen, and then the Assign button that appears in the left-hand menu. Now that I've assigned a user, you'll see me in the list. If I click the Overview link in the top left, it will take me back to Getting Started. And if I click Get Started inside the Setup Single Sign-On box, we're taken to the Single Sign-On options screen, where we can see two options, SAML and Linked. If we wanted to use a third-party identity provider with this application, then we could use the Linked option to configure this. But for this demonstration, we want to use the AAD, so we'll click the SAML button. Once inside the Single Sign-On screen, we need to complete section 1 first. This is where we tell the Azure IdP all about our service provider and where the requests will come from. If I click on the Edit icon, top right of box 1, then I can complete the section fields that are required below. Note that these URLs must be entered correctly for this section to be completed successfully, ready for when we test the client connection later on. Remember that for this demonstration we are pointing to a Tenzig UAG server, which I recently commissioned and built for this video. In this section, I just need to fill in the identifier, reply, and sign-on URLs, and we should be good to move on. To start, we need to click Add Identifier, highlighted in blue. Notice that the pattern is displayed below to give you a hint, so you just need to append /portal to the end of your external UAG server's fully qualified domain name. Once we've completed the identifier URL, then we just simply move down and click Add Reply URL, also highlighted in blue. This time we can take the identifier above, Control-C it to copy, and then Control-V it into this box, and then append the value /SAML SSO. We're going to add a sign-on URL next that we'll use later on when we show you how to connect from your Tenzig NOS-V client via the UAG to gain authorization from this Azure identity provider. Click into the sign-on URL box and simply use the external UAG server's fully qualified domain name, without any additional suffix like we did above. So for example, this could be https:// I'm happy with these entries, so I click Save at the top of the form, and you should see a success message displayed. Let's close this box and see what has changed in the setup sections. You'll see a test single sign-on message box appear, I'm going to click Test Later because I have some additional setup to do in the VMware UAG before we can prove our end-to-end SAML process is fully operational. After saving our configuration, notice that we now have SAML signing certificate details that will be used during our SAML conversations between the IdP and SP. Now, before we move on to configuring our VMware UAG service provider and ultimately our VMware Horizon connection server, we first need to download the Federation Metadata XML to our local machine. The Federation Metadata XML contains information about your Federation service and is used to create trusts, identify token signing certificates, and many other things. So it needs to be publicly available so that other parties can access and consume it. In our case, we're going to make it available to our service provider, our Unified Access Gateway, or UAG. We need to move down to section 3, where we see Federation Metadata XML, and then click the blue highlighted download link. You'll be prompted to give it a name and save it to a location of your choice. Notice that the name is already assigned as the name of the application that you specified earlier. I'm storing mine in the XML folder within C:\temp. Before moving on, I just want to set up an additional layer of security for this SP application by adding Multi Factor Authentication into the mix. I can either create my own conditional access profile and add my app to it, or I can just piggyback off an already existing tried and tested live profile by adding my new app to that one instead. For the demo, I'm going to show you how to add your own service provider app to an existing conditional access profile. First, I'm going to click into the search box at the top of the screen and start typing conditional access until I see it in the results below. If I click the Azure AD conditional access, you'll see a profile appear with the name Tenzig MFA. If I click this, then you can see that there are already 2 apps that are using this profile as part of their auth process. And if I click the link 2 apps included, I can see the apps under the select heading. To add our newly created service provider app to this profile, I click the highlighted blue link below select, and then in the search box opposite, start typing the name of my app, VMware Horizon Unified Access Gateway Tenzig Demo. Once it appears, I need to select it in the list, and then tick the box to the left of it. Now, I move down and click Select. You should see it appear alongside the other 2 apps that were originally assigned. I'm good with this, so I click Save in the bottom left and wait until I see the Updated Successfully message to appear. Now, we're ready to set up our VMware Unified Access Gateway as our service provider. Let's sign into my UAG and I'll show you how to make the connection between the already configured IdP in Azure and our service provider on our gateway appliance. This part of the process is very simple to set up. The first thing we need to do is upload our Federation Metadata XML file that we saved just a few moments ago. We scroll down the Advanced Settings section until we find the Identity Bridging Settings, and then click on the cogs next to Upload Identity Provider Metadata. You'll see a red star next to the IdP metadata field and a highlighted blue select link. If I click this, I'll be presented with a dialog box to find the location of my Federation Metadata XML file. Remember, I saved mine to C:\temp/XML. I select the XML file and click Open. You should see the XML file name appear against the IDP metadata title. Once I'm happy with this, I click Save, and we can see the message configuration is saved successfully. Now, we need to go into a couple more settings inside the UAG to enable SAML authentication through to the Azure IdP. We need to scroll back up to General Settings, click Show Edge Service Settings, and then when it appears, click the cogs next to the Horizon Settings title. Once inside here, we need to scroll down and click the More link to reveal additional on-screen settings. Notice that we now have an option named Auth Methods appear beneath Connection Server IP mode. I'm going to click the drop-down arrow and then select the SAML item from the list. A new drop-down box should appear with the title Identity Provider next to a red star. If I click this, then I should see the URL that will point to my Azure IdP. It gets this information from the metadata XML file that we uploaded just a moment ago. This is the location of the Secure Token Service, or STS, inside our Azure AD IdP. That issues our trust assertions to the service provider. If you had more than one IdP set up inside your UAG, then you would also see them in the list. Once I'm happy with my selection, I need to scroll down the screen, click Save, and wait until we see the message, Configuration is saved successfully. Now, we need to enable SAML authentication inside our VMware Horizon Connection Server. Once I'm signed into my Horizon admin console, I need to go to Settings in the left menu, Servers, and then Connection Servers in the top right. I need to click on my connection server to highlight it and then click Edit to get access to the settings. Once inside, I need to select the Authentication tab and then click on the drop-down box beneath Delegation of Authentication to VMware Horizon. We want to select Allowed from the drop-down and then click the Manage SAML Authenticators button below. Inside the Manage SAML Authenticators window, I click Add and then select the static radio button on the right. Inside the label name box, I'm going to type in Azure AD IdP, which is meaningful and makes perfect sense, as this is who my identity provider is. It's worth noting that this name can be anything you want it to be, but it is mandatory. Now, when it comes to the SAML metadata field at the bottom of the screen, this is indeed mandatory and will contain the actual Federation metadata XML that we saved earlier from the Azure IdP and later imported into the UAG. So, what we need to do is open up the saved metadata file in c:/temp/XML. I'm just using my default text editor for this. Select the contents with Ctrl-A, copy with Ctrl-C, and then go back to my Add SAML to Auth page and simply Ctrl-V to paste the XML content into this SAML metadata box. Once I've done that, I need to make sure that the Enabled for Connection Server box is ticked, which should be by default, and then click OK to save this authenticator. Click OK once more and you'll be taken back to the Edit Server Settings window. Notice that you should now see your newly created authenticator name below the SAML authenticator title. If I click OK once more, then I'm brought back to my Horizon Servers window. Now, We're almost ready to test our fully configured SAML environment. But first, we just need to do one more thing and set up my Tenzig NOS-6048QV Zero Client so that its Horizon application can make a SAML connection end-to-end along the complete protocol chain. Now that the NOS-V Zero Client has booted up, we need to go into the control panel by clicking on the cogs icon on the VMware Horizon Connect desktop. In the control panel, I'm going to click the VMware Horizon client under Applications, and I'll be taken into the settings for my Horizon session. Setting up a SAML single sign-on session from here is really easy and literally takes just a few seconds, as I'll show you now. In the General section, I leave the connection type as VMware Horizon and set the server URL to be my Tenzig UAG server address. This should match the external FQDN or fully qualified domain name of the Unified Access Gateway. Remember, we talked about the tunnel external URL in the UAG settings earlier. Well, this is that address. Once I've made those changes, I click the login settings from the left menu, click the login mode drop-down box, and select SAML. I'm just going to scroll down and tick Clear Browser Cache. This way, each time I log in during a demo, I get to key in my credentials for the IdP, just so I know it's prompting me for exactly what I expect. And once I'm happy, I click OK, and then close the control panel. That's it from the Tenzig NOS-V side, all done. Now, how easy was that? Took less than 1 minute to configure, right? All we need to do now is click Connect, wait a few moments, and our Azure IdP sign-in box appears with the Tenzig specific company colours. I type in my Azure name with domain and click Next. Key in my password and click Sign In. I just wait a few moments and I'm presented with an MFA verification window. Remember earlier during configuration of the VMware Service Provider in the Azure portal that we added our SP to an already set up conditional access profile to make sure that MFA was a condition of sign-in? Well, that's the reason that we now get to see this credentials window appear, just as an extra layer of security. I'll just key in the 6 digits from my Authenticator app and click Verify. I'm going to answer no to the Stay Signed In question. Click Accept on my test server disclaimer, and then you'll notice that my Horizon resources are displayed. If I wasn't using the SAML protocol and my Azure IdP, then this is where you would normally see a VMware Horizon login box prior to gaining access to your Horizon resources, including apps and desktops. This shows me that SAML is working as expected, where the authentication process is now being passed off to the Azure IdP when I try to access the VMware UAG. I'll just double click on the desktop JSON W10 Personal, key in my password, wait a few moments, and my Windows 10 Horizon desktop is loaded as expected. This concludes today's session, where we talked about user security with SAML, MFA, and SSO. We showed you how to set up the Tenzig NOS-V Zero Client to gain access to the Horizon desktop via a VMware Horizon Unified Access Gateway, or UAG, acting as a SAML Service Provider. All this was redirected through a Microsoft Azure SAML identity platform in the AAD, and we also demonstrated additional security features by utilizing Multi Factor Authentication as part of the sign-in process. I hope you enjoyed the session, and remember, if you have any questions regarding this or related topics, then please contact your Tenzig team or visit the website at www.tenzig.com.
We're back.
Yeah, that was quite in depth, I think. I hope we haven't lost anyone along the way.
No.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that info and demonstration video and found them useful and informative. So just to summarize what we've covered today in both those videos then, the first video looked at the principles of SAML, SSO, and MFA, and touched briefly on the history of compute security. And then we followed that by showing you how to set up and demonstrate a single sign-on from our Tenzig 6048QV Zero Client, directed to a Microsoft Azure SAML identity platform service in the AAD, or via a VMware Horizon Unified Access Gateway, acting as a service provider to gain access to our Horizon desktops. Okay, but before we start our Q&A session, I'd just like to put out the last poll question, if that's okay.
Yep, this is our last full question, so everyone make sure you answer.
So would you like to receive a Tenzig demo device to test in your own environment?
And everyone start thinking about questions because we've got a lot coming up. And thank you to Gideon and Jessica who just asked their first questions. We will be responding to you right after we're done with this polling question. Everyone just remember, we've got a lot coming up, and I'll wait for the VMUG promo. I'll wait for the VMUG promo until later. Let's see how our results are looking. Oh, perfect. We're getting a lot of great results. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Very much appreciated.
Perfect. All right. Jason, whenever you want. I think we've got just about as many people as, okay, that's looking good.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so thanks very much for attending this VMUG session today. Thanks to Drew for hosting it. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. And if anyone wishes to see this and any other how-to video guides, then please head over to tenzig.com and look inside the video gallery or visit the YouTube channel just by searching for Tenzig. But before we wrap up today, as promised, I'm joined by Ed Richardson, Tenzig's Head of Technical Services, for a Q&A session regarding today's presentation. And just to let you know, if you have any questions after the event, in the event that we can't answer them for you now satisfactorily, then don't hesitate to contact your local Tenzig team and they'll be happy to help. But also we'll follow up with any that we can't answer just here. So don't worry, we will get back to you ASAP with those answers.
Great. Thanks, Jason, and thanks to everybody that's asking questions. I know that Jessica and Gideon are asking pretty similar questions. Gideon asked, is there a recording for this? And Jessica asked, will this be available on your YouTube channel to review later? I'll let you talk about how they can view this on your end, but on our end, on VMUG's end, you will be receiving an email within 24 hours, probably in exactly 24 hours, of a link to this video on our page, vmug.com/webcasts. Make sure you check that out. You can see all sorts of old webcasts from the last 6 months. And yeah, keep an eye out on your email. Jason, what about on your end? Do you know what?
Yeah, so the first video, the introduction to SAML, MFA, and SSO is already available on the Tenzig channel and on the YouTube channel as well. And we're soon to follow up with the second installation and setup video, the longer video, part 2, that we showed you there. But like Drew says, you know, it's probably. Did you say it's available, Drew, through your channel to see anyway as a full presentation? Is that what you said just now?
Yeah, this whole presentation is be available on VMUG's side.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit more sort of housekeeping to do and a little bit more editing to do for the final YouTube and Tenzig channel release for the part 2 video, but that should be out within the next 7 days out there. The stuff that's in there, you know, the stuff that's not applicable to the VMUG, so that's not, you know, that will actually go back into the original video as well. Yeah, that's it basically.
All right, perfect. Ed, take a look at some of the questions we've got coming in and feel free to answer them if you'd like. But I did want to interrupt and just let everybody know what next week in Webcast looks like. It's looking like a strong week next week because on March 14th, on Monday, we have a Dell Technologies webcast called Cyber Defense at the Data Layer. And on March 16th, on Wednesday, we have an Avi Networks VMware webcast called De-Risk Load Balancer Migrations, Tips and Tricks. But I would like to remind everyone that in between those 2 days, on March 15th, next Tuesday, we have the March Global Virtual Events. It's going to be a really good time. I'm going to be there. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be great. So hop on over to vmug.com and check out those things. We will be setting up a lot of webcasts coming soon. Just keep an eye out for that. Ed, how are you liking these questions?
The questions are pretty good. I'm trying to get through them as quick as I can.
Oh, thanks, Ed. And if you wanted to, you could say some of them out loud if you want. I know we had Paul's question. Paul had asked, what are the top 2 or 3 factors or features that you'd say would distinguish 10zig's products from other thin client offerings? And of course, you responded, at ease of use, flexibility, and configuration, and the absolute latest feature sets are 3 items that separate 10zig from our competitors. We stay on the leading edge of zero client technology with the latest clients, feature sets, and functions. Justin said, great presentation. Thank you. Oh, that's for you. Come on, that's for you, Jason. Justin saying, great presentation.
Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate it. It's good to get the feedback.
And I'm just typing my response. Jessica had asked a pretty in-depth, we're very grateful to have you on, Ed. Jessica asked a pretty in-depth question saying we have a fleet of, forgive me, 5848 QDV devices. Is this setup only available for the 6048 series? And the answer was all of our firmware works on all of our hardware platforms. No need to worry about whether or not you have the correct platform.
Yeah, and that's an important piece of information because for all of our hardware platforms, the latest feature sets, the latest technologies are always available from us. So you don't have to worry about whether the device that you purchased last year is going to be compatible with the new feature sets coming out this year. We build everything to order so that it works on our entire ecosystem of hardware.
Jessica said, I joined late, so sorry I missed that part of the presentation. Well, Jessica, no worries. And as you already had asked earlier, all this content will be available to view either on 10zig's YouTube channel or vmug.com's webcast section. But thank you for joining. We'd love to have you here. Jason, are you going to be playing? Question from Drew Sukup to Jason. Are you going to be playing that guitar back there? You're gonna shred a little bit for us? Oh, here we go. I didn't mean to put. I didn't think you were gonna actually do it. Look at that. You won't. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, there. Oh. I didn't hear any of it, but it looks great.
We're not plugged in.
All right. From VJ, and how about we have this be our last question? Is the SAML integration available on VMware Horizon on Azure SaaS offering? Do we know the answer to that one?
Jace, you probably have a better understanding of that part of it than I do, honestly.
I think you need to, yeah, can you be a bit more specific, VJ?
Yeah, VJ, if you send a follow-up, we'll be able to respond.
Yeah, definitely. If you've got something specific in there that you want us to answer, then send that across, and we'll get back to you with a full explanation or a complete answer. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, and while we wait for that, we might as well wrap it up. Jason, were there any last things that you wanted to let our audience know? Anything that you would like to push to the audience?
No, nothing really. I think it's been a great afternoon, and the attendance was fantastic. I'd just like to say thanks to everybody, as always, for attending, and the participation from yourself, Drew, and my colleague as well, Ed. That's absolutely fantastic. The participation at the end for the Q&A has been great. And yeah, I'd just like to say thanks very much, and looking forward to seeing everybody again.
All right, perfect. Well, I want to thank you, Jason, marathon runner over here. We made it through the full hour, so thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. As a reminder to our audience, you will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast. To find out more about the VMUG Webcast program, visit vmug.com and check out the webcast page. And please make sure to complete the short online evaluation that pops up as I end this webcast. I'd really appreciate if you guys fill it out. It's real quick. Just let us know how today's session went. And I always love to gather all that data so we can have new great content for you guys that's more tailored to what you're interested in seeing. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.